their thing, and members, there will be plenty of time for questions after the presentation. So as the presentation goes along, just note down if you want to ask anything about them, and we'll pick those up at the end. Okay, thanks, Kevin, and I'll hand over to Caroline.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks everyone for attending today. I recognise some of you from Grassington Town Hall back in summer, but there are also some new faces as well. So thanks for taking an hour out to find out a little bit more about Generation Green. My name's Caroline, and I'm the Generation Green Youth Volunteer Officer, introducing the project and how we're delivering it on the ground with the learning and engagement team here at the YDMPA. I'm then going to pass over to Alice Rich, who is a member of our Upskill Downdale Skilled Youth Volunteering Group, and she's going to explain a little bit more about that part of the project and her experiences. So yeah, like Gary said, we'll then take questions at the end. So what is Generation Green? It is a 16-month, 2.5 million national, so England only, project funded by DEFRA's Green Recovery Programme. Project is led by the YHA in partnership with the Outward Bound Trust, Scouts, Girl Guiding, Field Studies Council and the 10 English National Parks. And Generation Green aims to connect young people to nature, create and save jobs and build an aspiring workforce for a green recovery. And the project Generation Green aims to do this by improving the diversity of access to nature and the natural world for young people, by testing approaches to ensure more children and young people connect with and care for nature, and by delivering activities that will inspire young people to see their career aspirations in the environment and outdoor learning sector. It aims to provide more than 100,000 opportunities to connect young people to nature, many for the first time, and to cultivate a sense of care for the natural environment. So Generation Green and the Yorkshire Dales National Park specifically. We are a key delivery partner in Generation Green, and the project and the budget has provided us with the ability to enable over 1,000 young people from deprived urban areas to visit, volunteer or to stay overnight in the Yorkshire Dales National Park, and to pilot a high impact skilled volunteering programme for young people to find routes into the green economy. So that's Upskill Downdale and Alice who'll speak in a little bit. So the project enabled the YDMPA to recruit a youth engagement officer. His name's Simon, so you might have met him and you'll see him around. And then my role as the youth volunteering officer to deliver this programme. And I've been working with staff in the access and engagement team and the wider authority. And our offer is, so Dales Explorer Days. This is 500 opportunities to young people aged 8+ to come with their school or youth group for a day visit to the National Park. Dales Action Days. This is 250 opportunities of youth action or volunteering for young people aged 14+. And then places for 350 young people to have a night under the stars with a residential stay at Grinton or Malham Youth Hostel. And then the final element is places for 12 young people on Upskill Downdale, which is a programme for young people aged 18 to 30, and hopefully sort of give some experiences, skills training, career development for them to go on and to hopefully work in the green economy. So our work has been focused on young people that are traditionally less likely, due to social, economic and cultural factors, to connect with nature or engage with nature and conservation. We provide transport grants to schools and youth groups so that travel across are not a barrier for them accessing. I would like to show you some how the project is working on the ground currently at the YDMPA. So I've got a little slideshow and I'm going to find a way of sharing it with you. Here we go. Can everyone see that? Yes, thumbs up, cool. All right. So I want to tell you a little bit about the residentials. So here are some photos of a group of 15 young people in year 6 who came from Wibsey Primary School in Bradford on a residential at Grinton Lodge YHA. 3 groups of children from the school have come on residentials throughout the year, and as you can see from the photos, each participant had the opportunity to connect with nature through sketching, making felt pictures, creative elements of the trip, having enjoyable and memorable experiences by bat-watching, stargazing and listening to stories around a campfire, enabling our healing landscape to support their mental health and well-being, and to be inspired to conserve what they find here. And we hope that young people and leaders start a lifelong relationship with the National Park, with groups coming for repeat visitors, young people revisiting with their parents, or maybe having the aspiration to live and work here in the future. And as you can see from the picture on the right, the group also had the opportunity to meet Rishi Sunak, who came out and wanted to know more about Generation Green. So the education session, so the Explorer sessions at the National Park, this is a photograph of a group called Hyde Park Source, who are a community organisation from Leeds, and they run a Healthy Holidays programme over the summer break for young people who are on free school meals, and they have the opportunity over the summer and the October half term to access activities and healthy food. And they brought 3 groups for Explorer sessions this year, and the photos show a trip to Malham Cove. So you can see some of them here. And these are 2 photos from a group of young people, so slightly older young people. These guys were in their late teens, who came out with an organisation called The Beck, also based in Leeds, and they run a programme called Aim Higher, which works with young people in care. And they brought their young people out to Cleetop Wood to learn about bushcraft and survival skills and have a fire pit lunch. So Steph there on the left is making damper bread, and Elliot was, I think he was cooking some halloumi. But they also came out later in the year to Malham YHA on a residential in October. So there's a little bit, I'll briefly show you some creative things that some young people have made as well while in the woods. So there's a little bit of feedback here from teachers and pupils about their time, which I thought I'd share. And if anybody wants a copy of this afterwards, so you can spend more time looking at it, you're welcome. But I'll tell you a little bit about Dales Action Days. So these are the volunteering sessions for young people aged 14 plus. So we have targeted groups that we know the project will have the most impact on, and a dedicated staff resource allows us to do this. So I work with leaders from schools, colleges and youth organisations to plan a series of volunteering sessions throughout the park. And these groups are coming from some of the most deprived urban areas surrounding the Yorkshire Dales. And the Generation Green offer means we can make and then develop links with groups we may not otherwise work with. We try and listen to the expectations and needs of each group when planning these sessions. So this is a group of young people from Dixon Sixth Form Academy, and the group, they're all kind of 17 and 18 years old, and they're studying science and geography in their A-levels, and they wanted very specific sessions that would reflect their learning. So here we are at Aysgarth Woods with the support of Rhiannon, who you saw in the last photo, Rhiannon O'Connell, who works at the parks, and we were conducting bee surveys and doing some flower ID. Here is Rhiannon again, and that's Zainab with her. And then these sessions are also supported by Upskill Downdale volunteers and Dales volunteers. So you can see Roger Gaynor here having a look at a bee. So there's another group that are doing Dales Action Days, so Good Deeds Young Leaders Group. These are a youth community group from Beeston and Leeds, and their leader Mahbub, who you can see right in the middle. He's been working with the education team as part of the Mosaic group for many years. And then when the funding for Generation Green came about, he was then able to engage his young people into the national parks as well. And this photo is after a volunteering session in Cleetop Woods. And then in November, the group came out to Marwick Park in the north of the Dales to support with the Tees Swale Connected project. And we made fencing to go around new trees to protect them from Highland cattle. So this is Lizzie as well, actually. I don't know if any of you met Lizzie, who supported on that day as well. And again, another Dales volunteer, so you can see they're very involved with these sessions as well. And the programme of volunteering with good deeds has allowed the young people to visit new places, to meet new members of the Dales community and professionals in the wider MPA and further afield. It's given them a sense of care for the environment and understanding of conservation projects happening, and fingers crossed, pride in the work that they did. And I hope it's also expanded their practical skills, resilience in completing tasks, and built their confidence. So, and this is Usman on the left and Seth, both worked really hard that day and building the fencing. And this same group, this is an article from South Leeds Life, which is a newspaper that's based in Beeston, Leeds. And the group came to Goredale Scar and supported Rob Ashford to rebuild some of the path. And there's some really nice kind of quotes from Rob and the young people about that day here. And I think it was specifically good this day because I think the young people had a lot of interaction from people walking past and asking what they were doing and why they were doing it and thanking them for the support. So a lot of community engagement. And then finally, I want to tell you about Green Meadows Special Educational Needs Academy. So this is a class ages 16 to 18 from a school in Menston. And they have done a programme of volunteering work within the Dales Action Day programme. And here they were working with Yorkshire Water, so supporting a ranger from Yorkshire Water to complete some tasks at Empty Reservoir. So you've got Sam and Harry here taking the tree guards down on the right, some big tree guards, and the trees have outgrown it, and then clearing the tree guards on the left. And then another photo of that group, Billy, Sam and Harry all sweeping up Meadow Sweep on another project. So we've also been able to work with the British Red Cross, so groups of young people from there, and then Bradford Council Youth Services. So it's been quite a range of different groups that we've been able to work with. And finally, here's some letters that a Shipley College group sent out to us. So they're learning English and they came out on a day and they wanted to share their thanks. And there's some nice little comments in there that I'll leave there for a second. Actually, I'll come off it. I'll go on to this. So we've noticed, the final thing I want to say is that we've noticed that when young people sort of step into the Generation Green pond, they kind of then have the opportunity to have quite a journey with the Yorkshire Dales National Park. So young people might come for an explorer session, and then the leader might recognise the potential of the opportunity, and then they will organise volunteering sessions, or they'll set up a residential. And then there's also the hope of some of these young people filtering into the skilled Upskill Down Dale volunteering programme. So it's all quite woven, each kind of part of Generation Green is quite woven into each other. And the final bit that I want to, that Alice is going to share with you, so I'll pass over to her, is the Upskill Down Dale programme. So I'll pass on to Alice.
Thank you, Caroline. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Upskill Down Dale programme. Unfortunately, I don't have some lovely pictures to share with you, so you just have to listen to me talking. But Upskill Down Dale is a programme for developing skills to basically help us to become young leaders and essentially to enhance our employability. So in practice, it means that we meet once a month on a Saturday to undertake a day outside, so practical days, for example. And these activities really vary and are very much designed to meet the needs of the group. So there are 12 of us in total, mostly female, with very diverse interests in sort of ecology, in farming, education and trees. So for example, you may have come across Laura and Joe, who have taken on the roles of youth representatives in the management steering group since June. So we've all got into the programme for different reasons. I personally got into it because I was meant to do a master's course, and my master's fell through at the last minute when I tried to change my programme, and it never went through. So within a week, I went from having my next year planned to having a load of extra time on my hands. And without much work experience in the environmental sector, I could really see that I was going to struggle to get a job, as all opportunities require relevant work experience. So in a bit of a panic, I spent a lot of time researching programmes that interested me to fill my time and sort of figure out what I enjoyed. And also in the back of my mind, I was thinking I need to build my CV. So I looked at a lot of similar programmes within, there's the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust and within the Conservation Volunteers, sort of among others. And however, most of these programmes required 3 days unpaid commitment every week for a full year and were on very specific roles. Alternatively, there were individual volunteering days around, but these very much lacked structure. They're kind of the opposite of these programmes. They lacked structure, they lacked flexibility, and they were not necessarily that regular. And for someone who had a full week to fill every week, it wasn't enough really. So Upskill Downdale, I came across purely by accident that it really was the best choice, as it provides flexibility and is so varied. So it's really given me the chance to try many different roles within the green economy, and doesn't tie me to a year-long contract where I might actually find a job in that process. Furthermore, Upskill Downdale reacts and is really flexible to what we need as a group, at a point where a lot of us are very unsure about what we're doing. And it was really the only programme which gives us the chance to see others our own age who are at a similar stage in life. And Caroline's been brilliant at sort of listening to us on these days each month, and asking us what we want for the next session. And it's been really useful because it is really reactive in terms of what we need. So some examples, for example, of the sessions that I have attended include bee and wildflower identification and surveying at Aysgarth. So the session that Caroline showed the session at Aysgarth with Rhiannon, and we actually did that as a session with Upskill Downdale as well. And then we also did an eDNA and riverfly sampling at Buckton Beck, was our most recent one, which is absolutely brilliant. So I've only really been in the programme since the beginning of September, I think. And these sessions have already provided me with really, really good skills on the ecology front in terms of ecological surveying and identification. Along with the employable aspects, Upskill Downdale has the social perks. So I've already mentioned the fact that we're seeing people our own age, and it's a really big shock leaving university and suddenly not having loads of people around you the same age at a similar stage of life. So Upskill Downdale has been brilliant for me to meet people in a similar situation, needing work experience to get into jobs. We have a really great WhatsApp group chat actually, where we catch up and share skills, talks, webinars, various things online which can actually help each other and are really interesting to us. So on top of all this, I've gained really tangible skills through the programme. So it's not just those soft skills of the outdoor activities, but it's also things like my first aid qualification, proper QGIS training, and my enhanced DBS qualification, which I can literally list on my CV as really tangible things to put on there. So alongside these monthly sessions, several of the Upskill Downdale volunteers have been undertaking placements with teams at National Park. So for example, there are or have been volunteers from the Upskill Downdale programme within the wildlife team, within farming, with the Ragged Robins, and also with the map surveying ranger teams. So for example, if you're around the office, particularly at Colvend, you can look out for Charlotte from Leyburn, who's working with farming and protected landscapes. Freya from Thrushfield is in wildlife. You may also see Lydia out with the Ragged Robins in the north. And I've personally had a weekly office placement with Nicola Child and the Trees and Woodlands team at Colvend. So I've been going in every Thursday, and throughout this placement, Nikki has basically taken me under her wing and is now handing down a load of skills on woodland management, as well as pointing me in the direction of online training and webinars to enhance my knowledge of woodland management and creation. So she has also given me really amazing industry experience of QGIS and how it's used within the parks. And it goes beyond sort of aimlessly following a set of instructions at university and showing me how to actually use QGIS effectively. And in addition to these work placements, a couple of the upskill Downdalers even, Laura and Lydia have had the amazing opportunity to meet Rishi Sunak at Grinton Lodge YHA, alongside another group of Generation Green volunteers, as Caroline mentioned. I focus a lot here and when I'm talking on the benefits to myself and others within the group. However, I really feel that myself and the other Upskill Downdale volunteers have helped the park too, and we've really had the chance to give back to the parks. So just within my work placement, for example, I've helped Nikki to organise the Trees and Woodlands database as she steps into her new role as Senior Trees and Woodlands Officer. Furthermore, I hope that having myself in the office has really helped to show other teams, such as the wildlife team next door, the benefits of work placements and of having skilled, qualified, really eager volunteers in the office to help out. So from this placement then, I not only know where my interests lie in land management and woodlands, I've not only been able to help out, but I now feel ready to apply to jobs, and the skills gained from the Upskill Downdale programme have been so useful when writing my cover letter, writing my CV, and also in interviews. And all this experience has told me what I really enjoy. I like land management, I like trees, I like working with people and mapping. And I'm one of those strange people who actually enjoys a bit of admin occasionally. Don't give it too much though. However, I'm not such a fan of studying ecology, which shouldn't be taken as negative. Upskill Downdale has taught me what I really enjoy, what I'm good at, and where I should be looking for jobs. Hopefully at the Dales. The true joy of Upskill Downdale is the wide range of chances that weren't in those other programmes that I discussed earlier. It's a really unique programme, and I feel very, very lucky to have been part of it. So thank you so much for listening. I hope I haven't waffled too much, but Caroline and I are very happy to answer any questions that you now have.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds so really exciting, and the way that it benefits just everybody. It benefits the park, it benefits yourself. Yeah, it sounds like there aren't any downsides to it at all. Derek, you have a question.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, firstly, let me echo that positive comment. I mean, 2 excellent, enthusiastic presentations of the impact this has made for those who've engaged. And also, I mean, telling the story of the full outreach. I mean, you're hitting so many objectives of our own work plan and strategy and priorities. Absolutely terrific. Caroline, I'm conscious that my 2 disappointments are that it's a short-term programme and it's requiring external funding. The short-term stops in a few months' time, and we know there are challenges in continuing with external funding, particularly on Gen Green, even in spite of continued lobbying. So the question for me is, even if the funding ceases, what have we learned that we can embed in our work going forward? Because there's so much that's come out of this, and you know, how can we take it forward even if we don't get continuation of the Gen Green funding?
I think looking forward and what will happen at the end of March and going into April, I'm sort of kind of in this position at the moment of embedding the Upskill Downdale volunteers into the wider Dales volunteering programme. So those opportunities to still volunteer and to find out about, support different teams within the park. I'm really hoping that they will sort of have more of a long-standing, I'm really hoping those will continue no matter what happens with Generation Green. And I think another thing that feels that's sort of embedded, and I hope will have a legacy going forward, is those kind of long-standing relationships that I think myself and the staff who've worked on this project are able have kind of seen blossom and seen those relationships kind of really stick and hold. And I mentioned it earlier, but Mahboob's group of young people, he's been working as an adult with the parks for a long time, and with Generation Green he was then able to introduce young people into the equation here and get them support. And I think those relationships feel really solid and I have it's not just myself working with them, it's the whole education team working with these leaders and facilitators from schools and organisations. So I hope no matter what happens with Generation Green, there's ways of through Rebecca and the education work that she delivers, through Kiri and her well-being kind of side in our team. Like, I'm hoping some of those groups can still connect with our team and have a relationship with us here.
Okay, thank you. I'm encouraged by that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Mark, oh, sorry, Gary, do you want? No, Mark.
Well, I've got
thank you. So I was really going to echo Derek's comment, certainly in terms of a legacy. I do hope that we're building a sort of corporate memory of how to manage this stuff, because we're obviously learning so much. It's really important that we can try to capture that, so that knowledge stays with our organisation as we move forward. The other point I wanted to make is we're clearly building relationships or touching hundreds of people through this process, and I just wonder if there's any loop back to them after 6 months or 12 months to remind them of the experience that they've had, and to see if we can develop that relationship with the national park. So having created those sort of magical moments, how do we, for the individual, enable them to remain associated with the national park? It would be a shame if that dissipated and that's the last they heard from us. So I know that needs resource, but it'd be really good if there was some loop back to the individuals at a future date, or even continuously.
I think that's something that's really hard to evaluate, isn't it? About whether they come back with families, whether they come back with friends. And I know that there's a lot of discussion at the moment around how we're evaluating this project. That's nationally, not just at the Yorkshire Dales National Park. It's sort of a national evaluation to see the impact of what's happened for this, and that's still ongoing. So it's something that I'll probably know more about in the new year, about how to accurately document the long-term impacts and to see how these young people then connect back later. I don't fully know the answer to that, Mark.
But can we reach out to them on an ongoing basis? So if you've had a group of children from a school, can somebody contact them in 6 months' time and sort of remind them or tell them what's happened to the bit of the Dales they were looking at? I just think some continuity would be great. I mean, it's really inspirational stuff, and it's how we sustain it.
Yeah, I think I know that with the volunteering projects we try and with the volunteering projects we try and if a group works in a specific area in a specific task, and that task lasts for a certain amount of time, that will be the task that group continue with, so they've got that long-term kind of relationship. So Good Deeds are coming back to Marwick Park to actually plant those trees in end of February. And again, I have no idea whether that'll be kind of continue after March time, but until the very end of the project at the end of March, there's that sense of that group continuing to work on that project, that ownership towards what they're doing, that ownership of that task. But yeah, past March, I can't really say.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think the other impact I picked up from the presentations was about children then bringing, who've visited with their school, bringing their families. So that would be really interesting to survey and find, the knock-on effects of who else has been influenced to come. Ian.
Thanks. First of all, just to say to Alice that your university's loss is certainly the National Parks gain. I'm absolutely delighted that you found, in a sense, what maybe your future direction in life. So thank you for all the great work and for the way in which you presented it this morning. A couple of questions, Caroline. One rather relating to what Mark has already said. We know, for example, several years ago when we had the Mosaic project, how useful it was by bringing people into and supporting them in understanding the park. And whilst I do understand that the Generation Green is time limited, I'm just wondering what we're doing to try and canvass the possibility of this being extended, indeed to becoming something much more permanent. That's the first question. The second question is, I'm just wondering how you go about deciding which colleges and which schools to actually target, or is there in a sense an open invitation, and how far beyond the boundaries of the park do we actually advertise what Generation Green is all about?
Let me try and remember both your questions there, Ian. We've just recently employed in our team a new, I think her title is Education and Wellbeing Officer, but I need to check. But Kiri Wood, who's just joined our team, will be working kind of reflecting a lot of the work of Generation Green, but also working with adults. So as she started her role last week, we've had a lot of conversations about the continuum of some of the groups. So part of the Explorer Days, we ran a session with a group of young people who are part of a running charity in Leeds, and they're young people who are living in quite chaotic lives and struggling with quite a lot of issues, but they go running, and the leader goes running with them in different places. And she brought a group of I went to Leeds, had a session with them in Leeds, and then Liz, the leader, brought a group of young people to the Dales, and we ran. And that's kind of something that I'm then going to hand over to Kiri. So there's some sort of handover there with some of the groups, and with hopefully continued relationship, so that the end of Generation Green won't fully stop all of this work. And in regards to how we pick, how we work, why we work with certain groups, we advertised. So I advertised it out initially. For example, that goes out in the primary network meetings and the secondary network meetings that we hold. The education team hold. I think it's 4 times a year. So we'll advertise it through there. So local schools in the Dales find out that way, and then we advertise it out more broadly to the surrounding kind of urban conurbations of the Dales through kind of contacts through any of the team if we worked in those areas before, and through getting in touch with DAV organisations. So then making flyers, and then DAV then sharing it with their contacts. So we kind of, that especially works with volunteering. So quite a lot of these young people have been completing, Green Meadows were completing their DAV volunteering, so their awards, so they came volunteering for that sense. So we kind of tap into our current contacts, the network meetings, and advertise it out through kind of specific pathways to do with volunteering and things. But it's, it's a very much a luck of the draw, because, and it's a lottery depending on if the teacher's engaged, if the teacher's interested, like, because there's some inequality in terms of if a teacher isn't at all interested in the outdoors, or doesn't have any additional time to spend kind of organising it, or if there's no kind of value, the teacher doesn't see any value or ethos in it, then those children won't get the opportunity. So we find a lot of the leaders and the teachers are already a little bit interested in the parks, or they're quite outdoorsy themselves, and so it's skewed towards young people who have a leader who will provide that for them.
Great. Thanks, Caroline. That's very helpful. Thank you very much indeed.
Great, thank you. Neil.
Thanks, Kevin, and And just to reiterate everybody's thanks to Alice and Caroline for some brilliant presentations this morning, their enthusiasm, and it has absolutely shone through. So thanks to both of them. Just in response to Ian's question, actually, both myself and Derek went up to Grinton Youth Hostel. Derek, in his capacity, long-term capacity with the Scouts, and obviously chair of the authority, went up to Grinton, and we had a brilliant day, and we saw a lot of positivity up there as well, both in Generation Green and Upskill and Downdale. But as a result of that, I didn't get a huge amount of positive response from Mr. Sunak on the continuation of this. And in my kind of naivety, I always sort of thought that government threw these schemes out there, these projects out there, and the really brilliant ones, they would pick up and would be more long term. I didn't get the impression that was the case. But just as a response to that, we have, as an authority, in conjunction with the Youth Hosteling Association, written and followed up that meeting, both with Rishi Sunak and other MPs, local MPs, and with government, to try and get Generation Green extended. So there is that going on. I just wanted to ask a couple of questions. Firstly, following on from that, is how can we lobby to a greater extent on that? I think everything I see about Generation Green has been positive. It's been a brilliant project. It's impacted on the thousands of lives of young kids who at this moment in time really need that, and need that generally in life, and how can we continue that? And so the question's maybe a little bit to Gary, but also to some of the county councillors and district councillors amongst us. How can we best go about that as an authority in reaching out to government and saying we should be continuing with this? So I'm not saying you have to answer that now, but some feedback on that would be brilliant. But just lastly, and just really simply to Alice, just in terms of where you went really to find out about those volunteering opportunities, I think that's really useful for us as a national park to understand where you would reach out to and look for those kind of volunteering opportunities that you obviously had to do when you heard about the Masters. But thanks again to you both for taking the time out to be with us today. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, actually. It's something Caroline asked me last week when we were talking about this presentation. I think it very much started with doing a Google of sort of volunteering, environmental volunteering, and then I sort of found the Yorkshire Wildlife Trust traineeships, and I guess I sort of started Googling around traineeships, work experience in environmental sector. I think I found on the Yorkshire Dales National Park website, I found the Generation Green page and was sort of scrolling through that. I think actually I might have found a general government page on Generation Green and sort of looked at where it was locally and found it on the Dales then. And I found it on the Dales page, scrolled down and found the different levels of it and looked for my age group. So as a 22-year-old, I didn't really fit into the other ones. I was a bit old for them. But I went into the Upskill Downdale one, and it just had Caroline's email, and I basically searched her email and sent her an email and asked her what it was all about. And yeah, but the other ones are very much a lot of Googling, a lot of searching.
All right, great. Thanks, Alice.
I think just to add, I think one of the things going forward with Generation Green, if it got refunded or extended, or if Upskill Downdale was to continue, is that currently I feel that Generation Green isn't that easy to access. Like, you sort of got to be very proactive, very motivated. You've got to be a young person with quite a lot of support systems around you. Like, to volunteer is quite privileged. So if you have to be able, you're not getting paid. So there's so many kind of barriers to young people accessing Upskill Downdale if they don't have as much money or they don't have a car. So there's a few things that I have been thinking about how to make it inclusive going forward, and how to kind of tap into some of those groups of young people who are coming in Dales Action Days who would never get the opportunity, and then how to make it a journey so that they can then stay part of Upskill Downdale. So I think that's sort of always in my head, and I've had a lot of discussions with Rebecca about that, and Sally, my manager, about that, because there's some disparities between the groups of young people who are coming in to Upskill Downdale and the groups of young people in Dales Action Day. So I'd like it to flow and tie up a lot better. that's just a thought.
Lovely, thank you, Caroline, and thank you for all of the thoughts and you know, experiences going into it. You know, that we're not just doing it; we are really, really deeply thinking about how we're going to improve it and continue it and everything. So thank you, Cosima.
Thanks, Kevin. Sorry, so I think there's a bit of a echo here. That was really inspiring, and
She's gone.
Looks like we've lost her. Okay, I'm sure she'll be back. Okay, so I don't see anybody
I'm
else
back.
with that.
I'm back.
You're back. Okay, good.
Bad luck. Bad luck. Right. With regard to Neil's query, as you know, coming from a side of the park that I don't feel gets very much attention, and I'm pretty keen to rectify that while I'm in office anyway. I think you need to come to County Hall, and I need to take you to the boroughs, and we need to see what funding there is from them for this particular project and how we can interact from our side. I think that's an idea. So Caroline, I'll email you about that. I'm especially passionate about this for basically for our looked after children whose life chances are already pretty limited. But something like this would never come their way if we elected members don't put it that way. And so I'm very keen that we all interact, those of us who are elected members, and go back to our respective counties and boroughs and see if there is some form of support to keep this project as it is, if not to expand it. And it is something that I've been thinking about quite some time. Other than that, I think it's absolutely inspiring. Thank you very much.
Yeah, welcome. Cosima, are you based in the Burnley area? So you're kind of the south, west side of the park, that kind of area.
I'm an hour. I'm probably one of the. I mean, I wouldn't normally be on the authority, shall we say, because I am not next to, adjacent to, or in. So as far as I'm concerned, actually, that's quite a good thing because I get a much clearer, slightly distant view of how the park interacts with the wider community.
I know that Catherine's been having some conversations with Lancaster County Council in regards to
sorry, they're not a county council. Lancashire is the county council.
Yeah, that's the one. LC, yeah.
City Council. Sorry, Kevin.
City Council, yeah. But yeah, please email me any of your. Yeah, it's caroline.hall, HALL at Yorkshire. So please, anything, email across any questions. If I don't know the answer, I can find out the answer.
It's really how we can help you, Caroline, to be honest.
Okay.
We've all done these climate change agendas. We're all talking about green jobs, but it seems to me we're not actually helping people into a sustainable job.
Yeah, thanks for that challenge, Cosimo. Obviously, as the one district council that has some of the national park at Lancaster, we obviously need to pick up that challenge and run with it. So thank you. Gary.
Thanks, Kevin. Just one or two bits and pieces, I suppose. I'm really struck by what Cosimo was saying there, and putting it bluntly, I think if the local authorities are shouting about the need for this sort of stuff, that will carry more weight with government than the National Park authorities saying there's a real need for this project. So if members think this is good stuff and you want to see more of it, if that message could go back to the county councils and the district council and the city council, then I think that would be extremely helpful from that point of view. The other thing that I was sort of struck by was what Caroline and Alice were both sort of touching on about trying to create a pathway for people that takes you right through from a kind of a first contact with a national park through to potentially being employed in that national park, or being a lifelong volunteer in that national park. And I think we're still kind of working on that. But the bit that really struck me when I was watching the presentation, Karen, was the way that almost with each one of those groups, you've then got another young person who's in a different role with the authority already out with those groups. You know, so you've got Lizzie, who's one of our apprentices, who's on. You've got Jacob, who's one of the T Swale project trainees, and you kind of get that mix of different people involved at different levels. And I think that also helps to give the people that are coming out a kind of, I wouldn't quite say a role model, but somebody they can relate to perhaps a bit more easily than an old fogey like me talking to them about stuff. So I think that's really important. The last thing I would say, because somebody said that they couldn't see any downsides with all of this stuff, and there is one, which is for old people like me. There's loads of young people wandering around the building, and I can't remember all of their names, and it's really terrible. But other than that, it's been absolutely brilliant.
I just want to add there, Gary, there was a really, I mean, Alice, you might want to talk a little bit about this, but when the Upskill Downdalers joined Rhiannon O'Connell, doing some BID and some bee surveys and flower identification, Rhiannon was really able to talk about her experiences trying to get into this sector. So she's I think she's a T Swale trainee as well. So she was able to give kind of like first-hand advice, her experiences, what works, what doesn't work, when jobs will come up, places to look for jobs. And I know that, I mean, for me, that was incredibly helpful for me to share that information with those young people who hadn't come that day. But I think they sort of, meeting Rhiannon, meeting Hamish, meeting Lizzie, they can sort of see where their volunteering could go, I think. There's been so many people throughout the authority who've really supported the project, like all of the explorers volunteering and Upskill Downdale. So and it's been amazing to work with everybody and kind of see how those things develop.
Lovely, thank you, Caroline. Okay, we're coming to an end now. Is there anybody who wants to make any final comments? So, okay, wow, that was so. Oh, Gary.
Sorry, Kevin. It was just to say, obviously, this has been the first time we've done this, so I'd really appreciate any feedback from members, kind of after the event, just about, you know, good bits, bad bits, things that you'd have liked to do differently, just so we've got a bit of an, obviously we might not be able to accommodate every possible combination, but there will be more of these. I think the next one's going to be on the Farming in Protected Landscapes programme. So if you could just drop me a line if there's anything you think you want to feed back to me, so we can kind of take that into account in developing the future ones. I suspect the presentations won't be as good in the future ones as the ones you've had today, but maybe we set the bar too high too soon.
Thank you, Gary, and thank you for setting this up. I think it's been incredibly rich, actually, and you know, packed with so much to really inspire, and you know, information to go away and really think about how how we manage to maintain and grow this project, because it's clearly got so many benefits, both for the park and for young people and everybody involved, really. So yeah, totally inspiring. So thank you. Thanks, everyone. And thanks for coming. Great turnout.